It's time for another episode of For Your Reconsideration, where we cast a torch under the cinematic bed to see if there are any movies down there that have been shoved under there by mistake and deserve to be brought back out into the light. Or if they should stay down there to fester amongst the other embarrassing and forgotten leftovers of the human condition. My name's Rob and I'm with Simon and James. Boys, talk to me, how are you doing?
What is under Robert's bed? That is the question.
His Steven Seagal DVD collection.
Lots of crusty socks.
All soiled. Are you well, lads? How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Superb, mate, superb.
Good stuff, good stuff. What have you guys been watching this week?
Well, Simon and I went for a lovely mandate on Saturday.
Oh,
And we went to see
we did.
the classic crime opus from Michael Mann on the big screen, Heat.
ugh.
And my, it was fantastic. It was absolutely brilliant.
It was very good. It was
Yeah.
very good. Great on the big screen.
Give me what you
Amazing
got!
on the big screen.
Give me what you got!
Pacino is just maximum Pacino. It's like, she's got a great ass, and your head is all the way up in it.
Did you fall in love? Did you fall in love? I'd buy that.
Again, I hearing a lot of the time, when people listen to the pod, how much they enjoy the impressions. I said, we barely do any. The first minute is solid impressions on this one.
This is the Al Pacino special where we just do impressions of Al Pacino for an hour.
Yeah, no, it was amazing. It's still so good.
Good stuff, good stuff.
Yeah, it's great. It's really, really good.
And speaking of heat, Simon had quite a heated exchange with the couple who came in 45 minutes late and sat next to us.
Right, what is wrong with human beings? I just mentioned the human condition, but we're just scraping the barrel all the time, aren't we?
Yeah, so they came in 45 minutes late and decided to have a chat.
Obviously, that's what you do, isn't it? When you go to the cinema, we're in a dark room, let's have a chinwag.
I know we've all seen it before, but come on, play the game.
Yeah.
So Simon sassed them, rightfully so.
Was it a sassy Van Damme?
It was very sassy Van Damme. And then he got sassed himself later on when some other people started talking and the girls turned to him and said, are you going to shout at them?
She made me feel like a right tit.
Maybe we should just do a podcast dissecting this. That's what we could do. Yeah. What about you, Si? What have you been watching this week?
Well, aside from that gorgeous mandate, I have most of the world, it seems, has been to see Avengers Endgame.
Oh yeah,
I'm going tomorrow.
Oh, it's excellent. I don't want to say anything remotely about the plot because you're going to get the most out of this film the less you know about it going in, other than the previous 21 films or whatever it is. But yeah, if you're a Marvel fan and you're invested in the story and the journey over the last 10 years, you're not going to be disappointed. It's superb.
Nice.
Plus, they don't really need our help. They're doing all right, them lads over there. Aren't they?
Yeah, they're not needing a plug from the For Your Reconsideration podcast, are they, at the moment?
For our tens of listeners.
Hey, we've hit triple figures now, James. We have
and we love every single one of you. We love every single one of you. It's been a funny week. My kids are obsessed with this guy called Blippi on YouTube. He wears a blue and orange hat. And when I end up watching these, obviously, sorry, boys, just to make it very clear, no TV, no film apart from the movie of the week.
Well prepared as always.
Yeah. But this guy, Blippi, right? When I'm forced to watch some YouTube star, I like to go into the background of this guy. So I did on this occasion. And this guy actually, he's worth $20 million a year, this fella, through all the subscriptions he gets. And it's basically him doing a daft voice like, I'm Blippi, on and going to toddler parks and getting all this, whatever. And my kids adore him and do impressions of him all the time, whatever. So I'm looking through his background, like, how does he get to be this guy? What happened to him? And I see that he's an ex-US Air Force serviceman. And he's got a background in SEO. So, he's got stuff going on. And then I find out that this isn't actually his first attempt at internet fame. Oh, no. Back in 2003, he tried to be a gross-out comedian on YouTube. And it was when the Harlem Shake was going around. I believe that's a dance, right? Is that right? I don't know. Someone help me here, the Harlem Shake, because I have
Rob
no
trying
idea.
to deconstruct pop culture is one of the funniest things.
I know. But right, so he was...
His head's going to explode.
He's a man out of time.
He was not Blippy back then. His first attempt at fame was a gross-out character called Steezy Grossman, who took a... Well, no, he did the Harlem Shake on a friend and actually defecated on him on video.
God.
And this has just been pulled up now. So this Blippy character, I'm less comfortable with my kids worshipping him now, which is the end result of this charming tale.
Two ends of the spectrum,
The human condition. What is wrong with us? What is wrong with this species that we are? I can't find fame taking a dump on my mates, but I'll try and be a kid's entertainer instead. What is wrong with people, man? I'm lost.
I mean, it's not like a YouTuber to be massively emotionally unstable, is it?
No. Anyway, I had to get that off my chest because it's been really bugging me. Anyway, right, whose movie is it this week? How do we carry on with that?
I don't know. I'm glad you saved that for the podcast, Rob, and not when we were just chatting for 10 minutes before.
I know. You know what? And he spent millions on keeping this video of him taking a dump on his mate off the internet. He spent millions on keeping it hidden, so you can't find it now. I have tried.
I've tried.
I wanted, verification that it was him. I wanted a positive ID that it was him. I believe it was him.
You have opened a rabbit hole. Oh, jeez.
I seriously have, yeah.
I think, let's swiftly go on to this week's.
Moving swiftly on.
It is my film this week, and we're going to take a trip to Mars, or should I say Barsoom, or maybe even Utah, if you want to be facetious about it. Anyway, this week's film sees an American Civil War vet discover a barren planet seemingly inhabited by 12-foot barbarians. Finding himself a prisoner of these creatures, he escapes only to find a princess in desperate need of a saviour. So yes, this is of course Pixar alumni Andrew Stanton's 2012 live-action debut, John Carter.
Mr. Burroughs, I'm afraid I bring sad tidings.
Your uncle's passing came as a shock to all of us. Where am I?
My body is a cage that keeps me from dancing with the one I love.
Our world is dying. Fate has brought you here, John Carter.
My mind holds the key.
You may be the only one who can save us.
I saw you. I believed it was a sign that something new can come into this world.
So, Sai, tell me, how does this film qualify for Your Reconsideration?
Well, this was one of the first films I thought of when we decided to launch this pod, because I vividly remember at the time when it came out, I had a vested interest in it because I lived with a chap who actually worked on it. Who was he worked on the visual effects. So I had a bit of an interest in it and went to see it. And I was like, this is great. This is a great film. And then when it came out, it got an absolute kicking from both critics and audiences. It didn't do well at all. And I was just felt a bit surprised and a bit like a loner that I was the only one who quite liked it. Rotten Tomatoes has got it at 52%.
That's in our wheelhouse, all right.
Yeah, Metacritic similar at 51 out of 100.
Yeesh.
And then even Letterboxd is similar, which is, predominantly just user reviews
Yeah.
is 2.7 average.
Phew.
So it's not great across critics or audiences in terms of reviews. It's not a surprising one, I remember at the time it getting a total kicking.
I mean, I remember that as well. Like,
right.
you know, the huge promotional stuff everywhere about it, the fanfare, and then when it came out, it got such a kick in, it sank so quickly without trace.
Yeah, so do you want some figures to back that
I
up?
was about to ask you, James, lay some hot facts
Right,
on
so
us.
the budget for this film is $250 million.
Holy Moses.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, and it made 284 worldwide. So the 250 million doesn't take into account marketing, things like that. That's just the production cost.
Yeah.
So you're looking at it's going to have to do 500 to 600 million just to be profitable.
Yeah.
Man, that is crippling.
It did not do well.
Yeah, but that, like, the thing is as well, is that 284, it did a lot better internationally than domestically in America, didn't it?
Oh yeah, it died in America. Yeah.
It absolutely died in America. So, at least the international markets, brought it up a bit. But yeah, even so, it's commonly regarded as a humongous bomb, isn't it?
Yeah, I've been racking my brain since watching this, trying to work out why it failed so much. And I'm struggling to put my finger on it really, because I'm going to tell you, I loved it.
Great, awesome.
I really enjoyed
Glad
it.
You did.
I really enjoyed it. Yeah, there was a moment in it where again, if you've not seen the movie, go check it out. But there's a moment in it, and I thought to myself, like, I am absolutely loving this. And it just in a really sort of honest, free-spirited way, I'm really enjoying myself here. Yeah. What about you, James? What do you think?
I like it. I don't think I like it as much as you two guys do, but we'll get into that over the course of the discussion. The consensus seems to be that the marketing campaign absolutely killed the movie.
Really?
Because I remember at the time there being a whole stink about whether because it was going to be John Carter of Mars, and then they dropped the of Mars at the last minute.
Yeah.
And the campaign was confusing. You didn't know if it was a sci-fi film, if it was an adventure film, if it was fantasy.
Yeah.
And I think also a bit of the problem was that they gave Andrew Stanton, who I think is an amazing filmmaker, Nemo and Wall-E are fantastic movies. But they gave him like free reign over the project like he was Jim Cameron. And
Yeah.
I think that was
They basically
possibly...
gave him a blank check, didn't they?
Yeah, to do whatever the hell he wanted, and that included he took over the marketing as well.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ah, dear. Well, because with the two films coming out, I remember at the time thinking, well, sorry, it's not two films, is it? It made me think there were two films. I thought it was like, there was John Carter, and then there was another Martian John Carter movie called John Carter of Mars, which was coming out from like Asylum Studios, the knockoff studios who do all the cut price versions of mega movies. Yeah. Is there a knockoff version of this?
Yeah, they do have one. I think even before this was John Carter of Mars, it was going to be Princess of Mars, which I think is one of the books which it's based on.
Yeah.
So that it's based on a bunch of pulp novels by Edgar Rice Burroughs.
Yes. Who's in the movie?
Who's actually a character in the movie.
He's the bookend,
which is
quite literally.
Lovely touch. But yeah, so apparently it was Princess of Mars, and then it was John Carter of Mars, and then it was just John Carter. So the Asylum jumped on the Princess of Mars, and they've done a knockoff called that. Obviously, haven't seen it. The only Asylum knockoff I've seen is I Am Omega, which is the I Am Legend ripoff, and it's actually quite good.
When you said they'd done one, I thought it was going to be like, Paul Parker of Pluto or something like that.
Paul Parker, famous England right back from the 90s.
I would pay for that. I would give...
Would commission, would watch.
yeah. Probably would end up with a better Rotten Tomatoes rating as well.
Is that why he suddenly disappeared out of like Man United's team?
Yeah.
Because he just got transported to Pluto.
What a movie.
What else came out around the same time? Did anything massive come out at the same time that might have had an impact on how well it did or didn't do?
Well, I think
nothing that should have affected it.
Yeah,
to be
I'm
honest
trying
with
to
you.
think.
Not really, but
I can't think of anything massive. 2012, I can't think of anything massive coming out that at the same time that will have.
I think I might be wrong in this, but I think the Avengers was coming out 2012, so we were sort of into the big Marvel thing.
Yeah.
And then I think Dark Knight Rises was that year as well. So those comic book things had completely cornered the market for your like casual family out into the cinema.
Yeah.
For that year. But then also that year was Skyfall, which was humongous for like especially in this country.
Yeah.
And then I think as well, interestingly, I think like for the fantasy genre itself, Game of Thrones came out the previous year. So people's sort of fantasy heads was the more tits and murder, the dark side of fantasy, rather than the whimsical, the whimsical side of it, which this is.
Whereas abs and murder, which is what this is.
Abs and blue-blooded murder. There's no red blood; it's just blue bloods.
Yeah,
and
we've got to get there. We've got to get there.
Yeah, so maybe it was that everyone's eyes were going towards more serious.
Yeah, because there was loads of sequels to this ready to go, weren't there?
This was apparently the first of a planned trilogy.
Yeah, it was definitely set up to be a trilogy, wasn't it? Because there's a hell of a lot of setting up exposition on this. Yeah, I do think it was that. Also, as well, like just looking at it now, Hunger Games was out that year.
Was it? Was it?
Yeah.
So that's going to take a lot of the audience. And again, it's a grown-up story for young adults.
Yeah, so it did have quite a bit of
teenagers.
competition then, actually.
It cost about a third to make of this movie as well.
Well, yeah.
Did you guys read that this was something like 20 million more than Avatar? Which was like,
yes, ridiculous.
Incredible.
just like,
I tell you what, according to the IMDb, I found so it's IMDb, we don't know if this is absolutely true.
Yes.
The IMDb would have you believe that when Stanton was offered the film by the studio execs, and they talked about the budget and everything like that, he said to them at that stage, I just want you to know I'm not going to get this right first time. Right, well...
Honesty.
Let's do a job interview scenario. Rob, thanks for coming in.
Very welcome, yeah.
So 250 million to direct this film? You reckon you can do it? Yeah.
I'm not. Well, what I'll say is I'm going to have a damn good go, and I'm not going to get this right first time.
Sold. You have the job.
Hey, I mean, I love this. I'm dead easy going about it. I'm a yes man. Let's make this happen. It's going to go wrong first time.
But we're talking about the economy of a small country here to make this film.
Just make sure that you think this has got trilogy potential, and then we'll be fine. We'll be fine. Seriously.
You've charmed me. What are they doing? What are they doing?
Everyone loved Wall-E, so they just shucked whatever he wanted. It was a bit crazy.
Yeah.
I've never done a live action film before. And he's been trusted with 250 million of the Disney coffers, which is pennies to them, really, isn't it? Especially bloody nowadays.
It's crazy, but like it is crazy to imagine that even he didn't seem to have the outright faith in himself to nail this.
It's like he's already getting his excuses in early.
yeah.
Because he knows he can just go back to Pixar afterwards.
We haven't even cast John Carter yet, and you've given up.
I know, yeah. Is there an alternate universe where Stanton, petitioned to get Van Damme the role of John Carter in this, do you think?
Can we have one podcast where Jean-Claude doesn't come up? He has nothing to do with this.
I think, we know he could cut it. We know he could have cut the mustard. I think the film would have been critically lauded if he, I'm joking because I actually think Kitsch is really good in this.
To be fair, I honestly think it would have been better.
Oh no, you leave Taylor Kitsch alone.
God, he had a bad year that year. Ooh.
He's had a bad year every year since then. He's on dud after dud after dud. I really like Taylor Kitsch.
Well, poor bloke can't get a break.
Do you want to hear about Taylor Kitsch's 2012?
Please do.
Shoot.
Right, so he's just finished Friday Night Lights, Tim Riggins, Texas Forever, all that good stuff. He's like, right, I'm going to go and be a movie star now. I was in Wolverine, nobody liked that, but you know what? I'm going to be the main man now. So he had an absolutely shocking 2012. So as well as John Carter bombing, he had Battleship come out the same year.
Was that the same year?
Oh, God. Liam Neeson.
Yeah,
Liam Neeson was in that.
Oh.
We haven't mentioned Liam Neeson for a few episodes.
No. You want to impress me?
You want to impress me? You know what you have to do.
I don't know if that's the plot of Battleship or not. I haven't seen it. It looks terrible.
I watched 5 minutes and it was absolutely dreadful. So, and that's from me. That is from me, you know. So,
and the guy who directs that is Peter Berg, who did the film of Friday Night Lights as well, isn't it? Which is in my top 10. I love that movie.
It is amazing, that movie,
it's
isn't it?
amazing.
What do we have any reviews for this? You know, any hot reviews, any hot takes on this?
Could I bring up one?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So I found that there were certain critics who I actually quite respect who just took great delight in giving this an absolute belting.
Really?
So I'd like to read out the first paragraph of Pete Bradshaw's review, and he's the Guardian's critic.
Oh, right, yeah. Cool.
It's quite long, so bear with me. So, John Carter is one of those films that is so stultifying, so oppressive, and so mysteriously and interminably long that I felt as if someone had dragged me into the kitchen of my local Greggs. Greggs is a chain of well-known bakeries in the UK for our overseas listeners.
I'd love to be dragged into Greggs.
And was baking my head into the centre of a colossal cube of white bread. As the film went on, the loaf around my skull grew to the size of a basketball, and then a coffee table, and then an Audi. The boring and badly acted sci-fi mashup continued inexorably, and the bready blandness pressed into my nostrils, eardrums, eye sockets, and mouth. I went to cry for help, but in bread no one can hear you scream. Finally, I clawed the doughy, gooey, tasteless mass desperately away from my mouth and screeched, "Jesus, I'm watching a pointless film about an 1860s American Civil War action hero on Mars, which the inhabitants apparently call Barsoom. I can't breathe." And scene. That's the opening paragraph.
I think get that man some medical attention immediately. I don't mean for the bread business. I mean for the delusional. He's living some sort of nightmare in a Greg's kitchen. Fictional
What
Greg's
is he
kitchen.
talking about? Was he like on holiday and they just give him his third basket of bread?
And he had a breakdown.
All he could do was...
I think he's trying to make a point that the film's not very good. Right.
I mean, you could do that in one sentence.
Exactly. I don't like it when critics see an opportunity to go in and do a hatchet job on a movie, and they're like, I can make a bit of a name for myself kicking the living shit out of this thing that people worked hard on, basically. I mean, he'd already written that review before. He'd been waiting to use that Greg's analogy for ages.
Yeah, could he not find a better metaphor for his feelings on the film than saying he was stuck in Greggs with a head full of bread? Could he not?
I don't even understand the metaphor.
I don't get it at all. Is he implying that, it was quite chewy? A bit too big to get through?
I love bread.
Greggs is brilliant, podcast. Right? So if he's dissing Greggs, me and him are going to have a serious problem.
Yeah. But you're right, he sounds like he's trying to be too clever for his own good. Just tell us what you thought about the movie. Not about a Greg's fantasy.
And if anyone from Greg's is listening, we are still seeking sponsorship, so you know what to do.
Yeah,
we would be very proud. After Pot Noodle looked over us, we'd be very proud.
Losers. Their loss. Their loss.
Their loss. I love the idea that when we meet up now, we've got to be eating the product of our sponsors. So 1 week, just shoveling bread and sausage rolls. Thank you, Greg's.
Or for me, Tuesday.
Obviously you brought this to the table, so you're hoping that, or I don't know, are you still suggesting reconsideration, or?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think what James just read out is kind of the consensus. A lot of the negativity towards it is a lot of people just found it boring.
Yeah.
And then, so you've got loads of people saying it's boring, and loads of people saying it's too similar to Star Wars, which sort of annoyed the nerds.
I didn't think that. I didn't find that at all, if I'm honest.
And then, there is a bit of Attack of the Clones during one particular scene, but...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, when its source material predates Star Wars by about...
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
70 years or something, like 50 years or something, then, is there a valid reason to not like something because it's, just because they got there first in a film sense? I don't know.
No.
I feel this film's really harsh.
I think that's the problem, is it comes across as derivative when actually it is the original that all these other sci-fi franchises have mined for their inspiration.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at there's so much Star Wars and Avatar and Superman amongst this film, and probably I assume the source material as well. Because those films got there before this did, and this book was written in like 1912 or something.
Yeah.
It's just, it's like no one's looked like, well, surely this is in the source materials, and this source material is X years old. It predates all of this. So it inspired all the stuff that you love. Apparently, this project was offered to Robert Zemeckis back in the day, and he said he wasn't going to do it because George Lucas had taken all the best bits from it.
Wow, that's incredible.
But that's the thing. What's a bit? Well, I remember this at the time as well, being so frustrated by people going, "Oh, it's ripping off Star Wars. It's ripping off Star Wars," and it's like, Star Wars ripped off that. Like, like give it a break.
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
if that's the thing you're going to level at it for being rubbish, you know, I can totally understand the sort of negative views from a film standpoint in terms of its sequences and its acting and, you know, things like that.
Yeah, there's things about that you didn't like. Yeah.
Yeah, but when you're saying it's like, oh, you know, it's too similar to Star Wars, they basically just said it's too Tatooine. That's basically what they're saying.
Stupid.
Yeah. It's too much.
It's such a lazy comparison as well, because I didn't feel that at all.
It's such a daft thing to jump on, yeah. Before we push on from the reviews, I saw a nice one from a chap called Noel Meller on Letterboxd who give it 4.5 stars.
Oh.
I mean, maybe a wee bit generous, but positive nonetheless. With the heart of classic 80s adventure and a modern aesthetic, John Carter did what so many have failed to do. It made me feel like a kid. And I think that's what people forget about this. It's a Disney movie.
Yeah.
It's a family, all-round movie for what everyone can sit with their kids and enjoy. And I think that got forgotten about because everyone was too furious about the Star Wars.
And the budget. Everyone seems to be up in arms about the budget. Like no one's ever spent money on a big movie, a tentpole movie before. It's like, yeah, I remember Mark Commode getting his knickers in a twist as well about the whole thing. Yeah, I just don't like it when critics go in and they go, right, this film is here for a kicking, and we're going to stick it to the mouse house and we're going to give it some.
I know, yeah. It does your head in that.
It's like they're ganging up on it, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it is because it's Disney, and, you know, this is in a line of a string of, like, Disney flops, Disney live-action flops. So, what, Prince of Persia was a couple of years before this. That absolutely tanked.
Yeah.
And then Tron Legacy was a couple of years after, which did exactly the same, which is a shoo-in for this podcast in the near future, definitely, because, again, that's fucking great.
Isn't The Lone Ranger a Disney one as well?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Lone Ranger's another one. That's a more recent one, which bombed again. So, yeah, live-action Disney, you know, outside of their live-action remakes, which they seem to be shifting to now, critics seem to take joy in giving it a kick in the stomach.
Yeah, they were waiting for it to come out. They're like, they've written the reviews already. They're like, come on, hatchet job.
I've got the perfect Greg's analogy. Let me have it.
I've been trying to use this since Avatar, but that turned out all right.
I think sometimes, like, the big problem I sometimes get, and that I understand with criticisms of this, is that, you know, what is it, 2 hours, 10 minutes, this one? Is it? Yeah. It might even be longer than that. It's quite. I mean, are you allowed a big budget film less than 2 hours now? I don't know whether, because I find my attention span at the 2 hour point is getting maxed right out.
Yeah,
unless it's completely engaging.
Exactly, and that's the challenge for the filmmakers. You make if you want to do it that long, go for it. Just make sure you've got me for that whole time.
I mean, like we were discussing at the start, Heat, we were watching that, and that's 3 hours long, and that didn't feel like 3 hours when we were watching it. Like,
that's the thing, isn't it?
It can be done.
Yeah. It's set in a space in time. It's a period piece, isn't it? I had no idea it was. So when I first started watching it, I'd not read any synopsis or anything like that. I have to be honest, I didn't know much about the source material, and then straight away I'm like, it's a period movie, and it looked like I was watching a like an off-kilter episode of Penny Dreadful at the beginning. You know, it had that atmosphere and the long hair, and Kitsch was incredible in the, you know, the old clothes, and then I'm like, is that the kid from Spy Kids? You know, the boy from Spy Kids was in it. Oh, I loved all that, and it was that.
Is that who that is? Edgar Rice Burroughs is the Spy Kids.
He's the boy from Spy Kids, yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that. Of course he is.
Yeah,
it all makes
seriously.
sense. That's why he's so familiar.
Yeah. But yeah, I loved the start. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I think the opening is probably my favourite part of the whole film, to be honest. Like, I like the Earthbound stuff and the him. I love that gag where he's trying to escape again and again. The visuals are really great.
Yeah,
like the visuals. It's a very well shot film.
Yeah,
I think it looks beautiful.
There was great editing in that section as well. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I like that opening bit is great for setting the tone of it all, because there's like a prologue on Mars with Mark Strong doing his lovely.
Oh yeah, we didn't even
guy.
talk about McNulty. So I can't remember Dominic West's character name. He's called something like that or this or something, right? And
yeah.
So I'm just going to call him Jimmy McNulty throughout this.
Yeah, I mean, and this is where, like, I think maybe you've hit the nail on the head. I think why some people might have lost the film. Or the film lost
the
some
language
people.
is impenetrable at some point.
Yeah, and the mythology is very thick, isn't it? You know, and I'm already, in the opening lines, I'm like, Barsoom is dying. Well, where the hell's that? Healy's resisting. What the heck's Healy? I don't even know whether I'm saying it right. And suddenly I'm wading through this stuff.
On knowledge of the
there is,
material, isn't there?
But within minutes, the action and scope of this is clearly massive in it.
Yes,
yeah.
And the effects, I'm going to say straight away, the effects are incredible.
Yeah.
I think they're
As
good.
they bloody should be for that amount of money.
But I think they hold up pretty well as well.
I they've really
they're good, yeah.
Because the whole thing's got like a film grain over it as well.
Yeah.
So even the CGI characters, everything's got that grain over it. So it kind of blends quite nice. And they use like techniques to sort of hide obvious CG bits, like there's sometimes it's really dark in some places, or it's quite foggy or things like that, just to sort of hide the rough edges. But it still looks good, like for
I think it looks
7
brilliant.
years ago,
and it doesn't feel subpar in any way whatsoever for me.
No, and that's probably why they went to Andrew Stanton, because they're thinking, right, there are a lot of visual effects in this, and if anyone can handle CGI, then it's going to be one of the top guys at
Pixar. Yeah.
And then if he mixes in what he's done in his other films in terms of the pathos and the characterization, then we're going to be onto a winner here.
You say that, but he did tell them that he's not going to get it right. He did warn them.
Yes, they had more faith in him than he had in himself.
All the stuff in the beginning, I'm really enjoying. The period stuff's great. I'm liking Kitch as a character. I'm going to have to call him Kitch. Oh, no, he's John Carter. I can actually say that name, so that's all right.
Yeah,
that's fine. I'm enjoying all that. I loved it when Walter White arrived.
It's the title character.
That scene with Cranston, I totally forgot Bryan Cranston was in this. But then, that bit you mentioned before, James, where he's trying to escape from being their prisoner. And it's like this slapstick, really well edited. The music's great.
It's so good.
And there's your tone setter. In that scene, there's your tone. It's like, this is not taking itself too seriously. It's quite funny.
Yeah.
It's got a bit of slapstick for the kids. So this is where we're at. And that's where we're going to go.
My granddad was a sucker for, like really fun adventure family themed movies. And we used to spend weekends watching them all the time. And this, I kept thinking throughout this, he would have loved this. He'd have absolutely loved this.
Yeah, and it's a proper old school swashbuckling Errol Flynn type.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
adventure, isn't it? Yeah,
yeah, really liked it. And then I'm struck with Carter's escaping, and the soundtrack. Then for me, I begin to really notice it, that it's hitting all the big sweeping notes that you'd expect from a production like this. And it's Michael Giacchino.
Yeah, well, it's our favourite John Williams impersonator. Yeah, Michael Giacchino.
That little known guy again, cropping up in a big Disney movie.
I assume he just swam through his mountains of money and just hit some strings, and then off you go, lads.
The score is fabulous in this, from start to finish. Yeah. It's so good. It goes through so many different genres of music as well. It's very good.
It is very John Williams.
It is, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, of course it is. I think the whole film is very it feels very Spielbergian.
Yeah, I give that. Yeah,
you can
definitely.
tell that Andrew Stanton. I mean, I'm making massive assumptions here that Andrew Stanton was a big Spielberg fan when he was younger, but we all were.
Yeah, exactly.
So
everybody is.
Yeah. So it feels that it's got like the mischievous nature of like an Indiana Jones flick, and
it has, doesn't it? It's definitely got that.
Quite cute,
cute's a good word for it. Yeah,
it feels quite Spielberg for me. Yeah.
See, this is where I probably disagree with you guys slightly. Is that I love all that opening and the slapstick escape attempts and stuff like that, and that feels like that Indiana Jones sort of vibe that they're going for. But then I find Taylor Kitsch and the character of John Carter just so bland and like. He's not got the charisma or a little cheeky wink or anything like that going on. I just find him too heavy and dull. And if more of the film was up at that level, that hijinks in the opening, I think this would have been an absolute classic, to be honest. Like, instead of him having the hashtag haunted past, he was just like a gold miner who like found a purpose when he was on Mars. I think that would have been... If he had more of that cheeky charm, whereas he's like, oh, God, my wife and my son were murdered while I was off away from my farm.
The kind of thing that would make you upset. But
oh, God, pull the other one. I'm here to have a good time, John.
I'm going to have to call back to this backstory when we get to the end, because he forgets them pretty quickly, doesn't he? Screw you guys.
He does forget about them quite quick. The flirting between him and, what's she called? Deja.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
The flirting is outrageous between them two, right from the off.
He's just having a big abs off, like who could do the most stomach crunches.
Well, he's basically just walking around in a loincloth, isn't he? And then
looking fit.
Okay, he might be a bit sort of bland, which I do kind of agree with.
Yeah.
I loved him in Friday Night Lights, Tim Riggins, absolute hero. But yeah, you're right. I don't think he can really pull off the leading man thing. They took a punt on him, which I think he deserved at the time.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it didn't quite work out.
I assume he's all they could afford after the budget. It's like, so who are we getting for this? Tom Cruise? What? Maybe Brad Pitt?
Lower.
Oh, maybe Leonardo DiCaprio?
Lower.
I don't know. Oh God, who else could we get?
So essentially, you've got a director who doesn't believe himself being told that they can only have a sort of a C-level star, or is that too harsh? I think C-level's quite a bit harsh.
I think he's B, isn't he? He's a big TV star at that stage.
Yeah. I'm not necessarily disagreeing here. I enjoyed him, but I know what you mean.
Yeah, he's not exactly bad, I don't think, but whether he can hold a humongous budget, massive summer Disney movie, which, everyone was expected to go and see.
Yeah.
He probably does fall a bit short. But I read that, a lot of the money, especially Disney movies, a lot of their money comes from merchandising.
Right.
And for this, there wasn't any. But it's like, you wouldn't exactly want your kids dressing as John Carter at like a little birthday party, because he's effectively just in a tiny loincloth, isn't he?
Yes, yeah. I don't... Yeah, there's such a good point, because when I go, when you go to the shops now, you don't see the kids like running around going like, trying to get John Carter teddies or, what are the creatures that live? Tharks, thank you.
Yeah. Willem Dafoe's, yeah.
12-foot Willem Dafoe's. Incidentally, the photorealistic effects on those are incredible.
I think they're good. Like, they look good, but then look a wee bit naff at the same time. But then I think it's because they're just trying to not make them terrifying for kids. So they give them a bit of like a cutesy look to them. So they've got like nice big eyes.
Up, if they showed up at the end of your garden in the middle of the night with a big light behind them, you are going to pack yourself.
No, yeah, you would shut yourself. Yeah, actually. Well, they're like 12 foot tall with 4 arms.
Yeah.
But cutesy eyes, so, you'll be like, you're all right.
Yes. Once you're close enough that the shadow of the UFO isn't all in your eyes. I love, when you're talking about the slapsticky stuff, when he's learning to walk and move on Mars, and jumping and all that. I found that loads of fun.
Yeah, that's a great sequence, but that's probably another thing where certain people would be like, oh, well, they've just ripped that off from Superman when he's trying to learn how to...
Oh, it's just...
It's like, well, yeah, Yeah, but it's in the source material, so it has to be in the movie.
Yeah, you can't just go around, and I'm not talking to you guys, I'm talking to the general critic consensus. You can't go around saying everything's just a knockoff of this or a knockoff of that, because, every love story ever told is, this famous adage that it's only ever one of Shakespeare's 13 odd stories that, obviously, 13 main templates that are used. And so you can't just go around saying, right, well, that's a knockoff of that, therefore it's no good.
Yeah.
Art is there to influence us.
Yes.
And, and to guide us, and you can't try and do something yourself. We're all inspired by things. So what are you going to say? You're not allowed to be inspired by anything anymore. Nothing will ever get made. Nothing will ever come out.
But then it's a complete circle when that in itself has inspired all the things it's apparently knocking off.
Exactly.
Which is my biggest gripe with the critical reception, really, is I don't think you can... It's really unfair to call plagiarism when that's inspired so many things what came after it in literature and film. So it should be given a free pass to then be a film itself and do its own things. And
of course it should.
Critique it in different ways, that's fine. Yeah, that one's a bit cheap for me, I think.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and to be honest with you, it came out, I think, the year before Man of Steel, which has exactly the same sequence in it when when Clark Kent's trying to learn how to fly for the first time.
Yeah.
So, that's seen as part of the Superman mythology now, isn't it? And it was actually lifted from this, as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it seems to be, definitely, yeah.
Yeah. What about the dog that he makes friends with?
Oh, lovely. So just to let the listener know where we're up to. So basically, John Carter's been back on Earth. He decided he doesn't want to fight for the Confederacy anymore. I guess he's not racist anymore. And he just wants to mine for gold, right? So him and Bryan Cranston get into a ruck with some Native Americans. And they find a cave, and in that cave, he comes across one of these Obi-Wan Kenobi-looking motherfuckers and gets transported to Mars, basically, where he realises that he can jump a lot. Sorry, Rob, carry on.
No, you're right, and he ices one of them in the cave, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does, yeah.
Yeah, that was a bit harsh.
Well, they're the Mark Strongs, aren't they? That's what Mark Strong is, one of those rogue
What are they?
dudes.
This is the problem we've got, is that there's all these warring factions, and two of the human elements... one's in red and one's in blue. And I'm getting so confused all the time.
I know. It took me forever to understand why they were fighting.
I still don't know.
Those two sets of human Martians, we'll call them.
Yeah, then you've got your Mark Strongs.
No offence to any Martians listening.
Yeah.
The ones with all the fake tan on.
Jimmy McNulty versus Princess Deja.
Yeah. and then Mark Strong doing his Obi-Wan Kenobi thing. And then you've got the Tharks caught in the middle. And it's that bit, because he ends up fighting with all the Tharks, doesn't he, John Carter? And they put him in prison, and he makes friends with a dog. And when he's escaping the prison, I'm thinking, that's that bit I was telling you about. I'm really enjoying this. This is good fun. And before it got quite, a bit complicated with the mythologies, I was really enjoying it at that point.
Yeah.
I would have liked the design of the dog to have been a wee bit better. It's a bit of an odd... little thing, isn't it?
It's like
he's super quick, but he's really fast.
Yeah.
And he just what is this?
It's a rapid turd with 4 legs and a big mouth. Yeah, again. And there's all those little squiggly snot babies, maggot baby things that he's in prison with that all sleep on him. Remember them? I'm thinking... What? I don't know what they are. Are they the baby Tharks?
They're the baby Tharks.
Yeah, they are, yeah. And the ones that don't hatch, don't they just execute them, saying that they're not strong enough to be
I found this
Tharks?
quite... offended my sensibilities as a father a bit. I wanted to round them all up and come with me. Yeah, I found it really awful, that. Really horrible. I thought
I can't wait to show this to my son. Daddy, what are they doing to those babies? Oh, they're murdering them. What?
Because they are not worthy, son.
Yes, yeah. This is what we do to our weak. We murder them. An allegory for our current government, perhaps.
Why do you think you don't have a brother?
2 pages of the script of 300 got stuck in the John Carter.
Is it about this point that they keep referring to bants in the arena? They keep talking about, you'll have to go to the arena. And they keep saying, yeah, you'll have to, there'll be bants in the arena. And I can't take it seriously at all. I assume the bants are the creatures. Don't worry, lads, we'll go to the arena for some serious bants.
Richard Key's going to come out and start presenting the event.
If Richard Keys
It
could
was
do
just banter.
if he could do the live match day commentary of, John Carter versus the Bants, I'd be well up for that. He starts flirting with one of the human people, and I get the impression that Collins is her surname, isn't it? I can't remember her first name.
Lynn Collins.
Lynn Collins.
Thank you, mate.
It was a bit of a career killer for this, bless her, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Well, she'd had Wolverine before this as well, along with Taylor Kitsch.
Yeah.
Do you think they've got the same age?
Well, yeah.
Not anymore, obviously. Someone got fired after these.
I feel for them now, because clearly they could have ended up being massive movie stars after this if this had stuck its landing. Yeah. If Stanton had some belief in himself. But it didn't, and they've both faded into. I mean, I've not heard of Lily Collins in anything else for ages. Kitsch as well, for that matter.
I didn't recognise her, to be honest. I didn't recognise her, which is a shame.
Kitsch has worked pretty consistently since, but not as a leading man in anything. And he was in the second season of True Detective, which is bloody awful.
Yeah, which that got. But again, he's in just dud after dud. I think it's just.
Yeah.
It's like when Ryan Reynolds went through a period where he was in everything he was in just absolutely tanked.
Yeah.
And I feel Taylor Kitsch has got a similar sort of jinx on him at the minute.
Which I don't think he's talented or charming enough to pull himself.
Yeah, not as much
out
as Ryan Reynolds. Like he was in. I did actually like Lone Survivor as much as, American propaganda army films go. That's actually pretty good.
I like that movie.
Yeah.
Just to go off on a tangent, don't you think that they should have swapped the roles around and Mark Wahlberg should have been playing the Taylor Kitsch role and Taylor Kitsch should have been the lone survivor?
Absolutely. Yeah. I honestly think Taylor Kitsch was the best thing in that. He was very, very good.
He was. But I was like, you two are playing the wrong parts. Switch. There is a lone survivor in that movie, spoilers.
Yeah.
Haven't seen or heard of it. So.
It's actually quite good. It is good. I was very surprised at how much I enjoyed it.
By the sound of it, sounds really good. No, I have heard of it. It's got Mark Wahlberg on the poster, hasn't it?
Well, there we go.
There we go. The marketing clearly worked for that movie.
Hey, I'm on the poster. I'm like a survivor and I'm all on my own. I'm hanging out with Taylor Kitsch in the jungle.
Do the rest of it in Mark Wahlberg's voice, please.
Trying not to laugh, right?
My brother was in New Kids on the Block.
At this point in the movie, the mythology's losing me a bit. When they're all beginning to fight and I don't really know why.
The middle portion is just so stodgy for me.
Why does he kill all those Tharks? There's one minute where he rallies the Tharks, but this is after he's murdered hundreds of them. And I never knew why.
Well, they're the bad ones. They're the
Yeah, there's barbarian ones.
Yeah, there's rebel ones, yeah.
Oh, are there?
Is this after they've been to the little, Stargate place where they figure out where he convinces her that he's actually from Earth?
That's right,
she doesn't believe him, does she, Princess Deja? Some barbarian fellas come out and he's like, I wasn't there once, I'm going to be there this time. And he's fully bought into this whole Mars mumbo-jumbo, even though he's been there for about 7 hours. Right.
He's pretty, honestly, he's very fickle, is John Carter.
And he just absolutely...
He'll drop everything for a bit of Mars.
Decimates all these barbarian fellas, right, ripping them to pieces as we intercut with his #haunted past from Earth.
I thought it very well done. I thought totally it was completely off with the rest of the film, but it's a great sequence.
That is a great sequence, to be fair.
It kind of peaked too soon with the sequel, because that's the best bit in it, I think.
It just made me think, mate, stop swanning about with the princess. You got issues at home, man. You got things you got to deal with, and you're swanning around here on Mars. Well, after what he's just left on Earth, no wonder he's like, you mean I can just jolly off over here? And just be on Mars and marry a princess. Right, I'm in.
And jump really high.
Yeah.
He's going to be slam dunking all over Scottie Pippen.
MVP in the Martian Basketball League. I thought Dominic West was loads of fun here.
He is.
He always is.
Big style. He loves it. Yeah.
He's ace, isn't he?
He loves being the topless British bad dude, doesn't he?
He loves it, yeah.
Yeah, just being a bastard and just walking around with his chest out.
Yeah, he's mega in it, that bloke. I absolutely love him. Strong's having a good time as well.
Being Mark Strong, doing his best Mark Strong impression.
In a lovely long robe, lovely bathrobe, swanning about, able to go wherever he wants. Enjoyable scenes.
I like Lynn Collins. I think she's really good in the movie.
Yeah, she's good as well, yeah. She's good as well.
And she's not a damsel in distress. She can kick ass and she's really smart. She's like the smartest character. And as we get into the third act, and it seems that like she has to marry Jimmy McNulty to stop genocide in her...
Jimmy McNulty.
in her city. She's doing it for the greater good, not because she's like, oh, I need to be rescued by John Carter at the end of the day. It's quite a noble turn, actually.
Yeah.
She's actually one of the more interesting characters in it, to be honest. And her motivations are probably the clearest of all.
Yeah. Underrated character. James Purefoy.
Oh, I loved him.
The sort of turn heel, sort of rogue agent, wasn't he? Because he was on Dominic West Side, but he wasn't on Dominic West Side. He was actually with the princess and John Carter.
Was he? Or are we just confused by who's on whose side?
Well, probably that, actually.
Because I'm confused now, but like, it's so strange. But I loved his sort of early 90s hairdo that looked like a serious hairpiece. It was so nice, lovely feathered, a bit of a pest on the side of a dance floor in an Amsterdam nightclub in 1993.
That is a specific memory.
Autobiographical, I believe.
I was 10 then, so it definitely wasn't me.
Absolute pest then.
Purefoy's ace in it.
He is really good, isn't he?
The score from the previous bit, when we're in New York in the 1800s, that music carries over to when James Purefoy's on screen. So he's the sort of whimsical guy in Mars.
Yeah, yeah.
I think Purefoy got a bit screwed over because he took the movie on the proviso that there was going to be two more of them where his part would be beefed up and he'd be like the co-lead with John Carter, like his best mate and stuff. And then obviously it never happened. Like they were going to have like this buddy bromance thing going on.
Kitchen Purefoy.
What a combination.
It sounds like a failed solicitors or dog groomers in somewhere like Rottenstall or something like that. Purefoy, his name, I love that surname Purefoy, just while we're talking about constant rubbish, but Purefoy, it's like, like some words are onomatopoeic, that they sound like what they are, what they're describing.
I know what onomatopoeia is, Rob, thanks.
No, it wasn't really for you, James. It was really in case any listeners didn't know.
And for me.
Yeah. But I think, like, Purefoy is onomatopoeia in surname form. Like a really crisp, lovely, suave, smoothly turned out gentleman.
Whereabouts are we in the film now? So
the wedding's happening.
Yeah.
And she's got to marry him, and he's like, well, join me, Tharks, because I've murdered hundreds of you, and it would be the obvious choice.
He gives a good pep talk,
me.
Man. Give him some credit. He gives a good pep talk.
Oh, he does. Oh no, he's got to go for Bants in the arena first.
So while that wedding's getting organised, he's been captured by the bad Thark, who is
is that what's happening?
What's he called?
Here?
The guy with the big jaw, who's in Spider-Man. Cox, what's he called?
Thomas Hayden Church.
Thomas Hayden Church. Who drinks the wine.
Yeah.
He's been captured by the bad Tharks, led by now Thomas Hayden Church, because Willem Dafoe has been put in the slammer for betraying them.
Yeah, there's a whole subplot with like Willem Dafoe's, is it his wife or his daughter or whatever?
His daughter, yeah.
Yes, yeah, daughter.
So then they're now in the gladiator arena, which we hear so much about, with their top bands. To be honest, I found this scene a bit underwhelming. I thought,
it was anticlimactic the way they built it up.
It was in all the trailers, and it was the sort of one big scene they sort of built it all upon. And it goes back to that Star Wars comparison, which is why people were bothered with it. It was Attack of the Clones had a very similar... No, was it Attack of the Clones or the third one?
It was, yeah,
had a very similar scene in it. And I guess people had just been like, I've seen this.
Yeah.
Despite what we were saying before about giving it a break, this scene felt a bit underwhelming, especially coming after that scene where he's slaughtering all the Tharks and it's cutting with the death of his wife and his kid.
Yeah.
It's a bit underwhelming. So that pushed on, and it was like, yeah, okay, let's move on a bit from that. Blah, blah, blah. So yeah, what did you guys think of that?
I like that bit.
Yeah, I mean, I am in agreement with you, Simon. I thought like it had been sort of we'd heard a lot about the top bants and the arena and stuff like that, and I was expecting like a real big smackdown in there, and he's just like, he just stabbed one of them.
they were no match for him, really. Like, he dispatched them very easily.
Yeah.
But I think by that point, we need to, like, zip along to get the Tharks on his side to then stop this wedding and sort this war out.
Yeah.
Because it is quite political, really. The whole thing is quite political. And
it is, yeah.
Well, it's allegorical, isn't it, for the civil war that's happening on Earth?
Yeah, exactly. And it mirrors that quite well. And
yeah.
So we have to get through, because we didn't have gladiator arena fights with big bants in the Civil War.
Richard Keys was not invited. Oh, God, he'd have had a field day, wouldn't he?
So yeah, he takes the Tharks then to fight the other two races, the Helians and the other ones. Oh, the names are difficult to remember, aren't they?
This is the one, like, struggling.
Right, Jimmy McNulty's mob and the other lot.
Yeah. The good guys and the bad guys, the reds and the blues.
Yeah, it's the truth. One is wearing red, one's wearing blue.
Shirts and skins.
Shirts and skins.
And then so he's got to some of the action at the end leading up to the wedding is great. Mega big budget, over the top.
It's good.
Sweeping action, which I really enjoyed.
And again, hasn't dated, I don't think. I don't like the...
No, I don't think so,
When he jumps on the little, like, flyy motorbike thing, all that looks good. The vehicles look great. The design's really good of them all.
Yeah, it's a really good looking movie.
It is.
Yeah, absolutely,
$250 million worth.
Would do that for you, yeah. There's the odd callback, isn't there, which I found quite cloying, of a wedding ring on repeat, isn't there? He's got a wedding. He's got two rings on his finger.
He hides it as well. When she looks down and he hides it, like, ooh, busted.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, like, now come on, mate.
Like it means the same thing on Mars as it does on Earth. Like.
Yeah.
Does as it happens, James? It does. It's universal.
Literally.
The wedding, there's a big smackdown at the wedding, and, there's no spoiler. You're all going to guess that John Carter saves the day, and she doesn't have to marry that, the legend that is Dominic West. Jimmy McNulty.
Because Mark Strong, who's been like the puppet master throughout, controlling Jimmy McNulty, decides to just off him for whatever reason.
Yes,
just really easily, just
struggling to keep on top of this. Because by this point, I'm like, who's on whose side? I don't know who's supporting who here. And then, they decide he gets married immediately to the princess, doesn't he?
Well, they've got all the stuff there, so they may as well. Like, they've booked the vicar. Vicar.
Let's not
crack on.
I don't want to waste all this.
He's known her for all of 3 hours, like.
Yeah. This is it. He's known her for 3 hours, right? Have you ever been at a wedding where just beforehand the groom says, yeah, I think I'm ready, and takes off his old wedding ring for a previous marriage and casts it aside, which is symbolic of his relationship with his wife and kid that have been murdered back on Earth. And he's ready to throw down on a marriage proposal immediately. It's all a bit quick for me. He's not even had a meal on Mars. And he said, like, yeah, I'll stay here. This is great. What if he hates the cuisine? What if he has he even had a bowel movement on Mars? What if they've got a really weird way of going the loo? No, he's just seen the princess and he's like, no, I'm in here. This is great. I love this. What if he's like, so now I'm married. What have we got as a snack for, well, it's a load of Bant's bowel movements for the snack. Like, oh, is this? No, you're joking, aren't you? No, this is traditional Martian cuisine.
Snark penis for pudding.
yeah. What if he hates all that stuff and he'll be like looking in the mirror like, oh, I was a bit rash, I think. I was a little bit rash here.
I mean, she's got banging abs just like me, but flipping heck, there's more to life than abs. And being able to jump.
Do you get protein shakes on Mars? Will there be organically sourced lean beef on Mars? Oh, dear. Anyway, so I had some serious questions about his motivations at the end.
But he just processed all his grief by slaughtering all those bastards in the desert.
So basically, murder can be cathartic and good for the soul.
Yeah, he's over it. He's over it. He's fine.
He's fine now, yeah. He can take his wedding rings off, marry the princess.
I mean, if he'd gone back to the Civil War and fought for his racist principles, then he probably would have processed that all in the first place.
In the film's world, in the film's logic, that's exactly correct. I'm looking at all the stuff that we've got to cover here. I'm saying story, the story's it's a timeless classic, but in the context of this, let's stick it into a 2-hour movie. The mythology for me was just too confusing.
They should have streamlined it.
Yeah. It was up and down and then up again.
Yeah.
The final bit where he goes back to New York.
Oh, yeah.
And it's revealed that he's led Mark Strong's people on a goose chase so he can get back to Mars, because Mark Strong basically sends him back to Earth. By this point, he's married the princess and he's like, I don't need this transporting medallion thing anymore. Chucks it away. And then Mark Strong, being like the shapeshifter he is, sends him back to Earth.
Oh, yeah, we should say that Mark Strong is a shape-shifting bastard, by the way.
He is a shape-shifting bastard, yeah. And honestly, this is all like the last 5 minutes. It's proper squeezed in.
It happens in like 10 minutes, the whole thing.
For me, that's what made it a memorable film for me, and that's why I actually thought it was a good movie in the end, because I thought that little payoff at the end was so worth it.
Yeah.
Because you're reading this as a diary from John Carter as if he has died.
Yes.
So Edgar Rice Burroughs is reading this diary, and that's what the story is he's reading this diary as if John Carter's dead, and he's buried in this tomb. And it all turns out to be a puzzle for Edgar Rice Burroughs to sort out. But then it's also a goose chase for Mark Strong's people. I forget what they're called.
They're like overseers, aren't they?
So he
Knock-off Jedis.
So he can get back to Mars. And I just think that is so nicely done in like 5-10 minutes. And it's really well weaved, that little bit. And I'm like,
I got no problem with that at all.
That's 1 whole star for it right there on that ending, I think.
I think the bookends of the movie are actually the best bits, to be honest.
It could, yeah. I really like it. My only problem with the end, though, is he shoots someone, doesn't he, outside the tomb, and leaves, and then goes off back to Mars, and he leaves Ned, and I'm thinking, like, he's just left Ned with a body.
Yeah, but it's one of those alien things. It's fine.
So what are they going to do with it? Like, well, there's some explaining to do here, Ned.
He can bury it. It's fine. No one will know. He can put it under the patio like Brookside. It's fine.
Plus, Rob, you've got to look at it from John Carter's perspective. He's been stuck back on Earth for 13 years. He's not got his racist rocks off him in quite some time. He needs to get back to Mars pronto.
To murder a load of people to process his inner thoughts. Yeah, fair dues. It's a step in the right direction then, murdering that guy.
The one thing from that bit where he goes back in time, when he goes back to Earth, is he wakes up in the cave where he got transported, and you're initially going, oh, was it all a dream? And then he turns to Bryan Cranston, who's now a skeleton, and you're like, how long's he been in there? Has he been in there like 100 years? And then he comes out and it's been about 2 years. And he's just like, but Bryan Cranston is somehow a skeleton.
But the film makes it like he's been on Mars for a long weekend at most.
Yeah.
But he's fully bought into the whole Mars thing. Like, he's like their leader now. Like, he's like a godlike figure. It's a hell of a mini break, to be fair.
It is. It's like he went to Skegness and converted everyone at Butlins. Just had a mad old time. Got absolutely out of his face and made friends with loads of people and left Butlins a king.
And then he had to go back to the racist south of Civil War America.
Yeah. I've got to ask, what's your best bit, boys? What are your favourite bits?
I think my favourite bit, it wasn't necessarily a moment. I mean, I love the sort of battle in the middle where it's all in silence and it goes back to when he lost his wife and kid. That was great in terms of like a scene. But I think overall, my favourite bit was how it was quite campy in places, like Flash Gordon was.
Yeah.
And I just love how it's taking that old 70s, 80s style movie, like Flash Gordon. And it was also quite similar in tone to the wildly successful Mummy films.
Yeah.
It kind of felt like that as well.
But it didn't have its tongue far enough into its cheek for me.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the overall tone of it for me, I love Flash Gordon. It's brilliant. All this was missing was Brian Blessed.
Gordon's alive!
And a ripping Queen soundtrack.
Oh, yeah. What about you, James?
Yeah, my favourite bit. So we sort of touched on it. So obviously Mark Strong is a shape-shifting evil bastard, right? So I actually enjoyed that twist where he's got married after knowing his missus for 4 hours. And they've had a lovely old time in the evening. And he goes out on the balcony to look at his new home of Barsoom, And this guard just comes up to him and goes, "Oh, like, I want to shake your hand," or whatever, you know. And it turns out to be a shape-shifting bastard. And honestly, that took me completely by surprise. Even though I knew Mark Strong wasn't dead, I was like, "Oh God!" And then he zapped back to Earth, and it's like, "No! I still got my Mars erection, and now my whole body's rigor mortis." Devastated. He was just getting a second wind, and now he's back in a cave with Skeletor.
I think I love that bit as well. My favourite bit, I think, I liked a lot of it actually, but certainly the tongue-in-cheeky stuff, not the overly serious stuff. But Kitsch's delivery of the line, "Beans, the first item is beans." Do you guys not remember when that was?
I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm gonna have to rewatch it just to find that bit.
Failing that, I liked it when he woke up in the prison and all them little fat babies that weren't dead yet were all over him. I like that. That's nice. It's nice. So, what do you think? Worthy of reconsideration?
I think it's fine. I think it's a solid family adventure, if a bit violent for the whole family. It's a bit long and some parts really drag, but generally speaking, it's good. There's some great effects work and it's fun, swashbuckling action. It's not a one-star movie or the disaster that some would have you believe from the critical legacy. I think if it's on TV or streaming, then it's definitely worth a watch and you could do a lot worse. I've seen one-star movies, click, and this isn't one.
Nice. Yeah, I'll leave the final word to you, Si, on that one. But for me, I thought critical legacy is a lovely expression, James. Critical legacy is way too harsh here.
Oh, yeah.
There's loads to enjoy, lots of fun. I would say, yeah, do definitely reconsider this. And just enjoy a great big, don't take it too seriously, just enjoy a great big budget, tentpole, good guys, bad guys release, and have a load of fun, have fun with it. Because the film, you know, in its best moments, does have a lot of fun. The effects are amazing, the action sequences I really enjoyed. I love the scope, the movie looks fantastic, sounds fantastic. So yeah, I'd definitely say go for it. The mythology's a bit sketchy and a bit heavy, but don't get bogged down in any of that. Just keep your head above water and enjoy it for what it is. And yeah, again, I could do with 10 minutes less, 15 minutes less, particularly around the middle. But then again, as a middle-aged man, don't we all? So yeah, I'm dead easy going about it. Yeah, for your reconsideration, I will say, yeah, do reconsider this one.
I would obviously say reconsider this. It was my choice after all. But I think the opening half hour is fantastic. I think the last half hour is great as well. It does sag a bit in the middle, which is a shame. But I am torn in a way because, you know, I would usually enjoy like disproving or battling consensus, you know, when it comes to critics saying something's rubbish and giving it the boot. But so many people found it boring, and, you know, you can't argue if people found it boring, people found it boring. So, you know, and that middle section is quite saggy for people to think that. But I honestly think there's something I really like about John Carter. Maybe I have some sort of blind loyalties because I know a friend who worked on it, or I was too busy swooning over Taylor Kitsch's gorgeous abs. So I've got to review what sort of sums up the general feeling about this film. And I do kind of agree with it, to be honest. So this is from Alonso Duralde from The Wrap. This was made at the time of release. Stanton's work here is competent on an epic scale. Everything from the performances to the look of the film is perfectly fine, but there's a crushing dullness to it. And I can't argue with that, to be honest, because I do think that middle ground is a bit dull.
Yeah.
On the whole, though, I think there's more to love than not to love about it, and I think there's plenty here to reconsider it, definitely.
Nice, yeah. I'd agree with you.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I chose
absolutely.
it. So, that's me.
So, Si, you know, because I think when we were talking about the genesis for this pod, I think this was one of the films that you sort of wanted to highlight, wasn't it? And one of the inspirations, if it were.
It was,
so,
yeah, it was.
Has it not held up as well as you remembered it then?
I think it's held up in all the ways I didn't expect it to hold up, to be honest. I think visually it's still amazing.
Yeah, I agree, yeah.
I'm amazed that people sort of mock it for how it looks, to be honest. I think it looks great. I think it looks really good.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things you just can't mock it on.
Yeah.
from a technical standpoint, it's really, really solid.
It is. It's really, really solid. And, as you would expect from a budget that big, but, it's on the good side of the middle third star rather than the other side of that third star.
Yes, yeah. I go.
Wouldn't say it's amazing, but I definitely would say, in terms of this pod especially, it's way better than what it's been given.
Yeah, that's totally agreed, yeah. And that's what this pod's about, isn't it? Trying to get movies that have been unfairly slammed another chance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That about wraps it up. Thank you for listening. Please hit us up with feedback on Twitter at FYRFilmPod or email at reconsiderpod@gmail.com. And whatever you're listening on, if you've enjoyed it, please help us out with a like, subscribe, 5-star rating, whatever it is that will help us grow and reach new listeners. Until next time, say goodbye, boys.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Take it easy.